From the land of the Midland, it's the Philosophy Jerks.
Welcome to the Philosophy Jerks in a studio far, far away in a time not so long ago. I am Brian, joined as always by...
the one, the only, Han Josh.
Han Josh. Can I be Luke Brian?
If you want. I always thought of you as more as a Brian Luke.
Okay, Brian Luke. That'll work. Josh, I'm nerding out, but before we get to it, this is episode number 31. We're the Philosophy Jerks, and we're the cure for the common conversation.
That we are, Brian, and today, of course, if you haven't guessed already, is the super secret and awesome Star Wars episode. So secret that we had to go underground for, 2 weeks and not release an episode just so we could prepare for this awesome release.
It was actually 3 weeks, Josh.
You know, I was trying to hit the ball up soft, and you just kind of took that monster swing, didn't you?
It's that Catholic guilt, I had to be honest.
I must suffer and repent.
Yeah, but anyway, so, it's December, it's the holiday season. It's tough to get some free time right now, but we've been planning this episode for, pretty much the inception of the show.
Absolutely, Brian. In fact, if I recall, this was in our top 10 episode topics that we wanted to cover, and we specifically saved it for the new movie.
Yes, the new movie, which by the time you hear this episode, will be coming out the week of the time this episode releases. So we're excited, we're nerding out, and I'm sure most of you are too. So we thought what better to do than have a super special Star Wars extravaganza episode.
Oh man, I have my fireworks and whistles ready to go.
So, let's not waste any time. We got lots of stuff to talk about, but before we do any of that, Josh, there's one thing we have to finish first.
Is it the beer review?
It is the beer review. Let's get to it.
Oh boy.
Beer, 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 I'm going for a beer. Beer, 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 I'm gonna drink some beer. I like drinking beer. Lovely, lovely beer. Beer, beer, beer.
Okay, Josh, we're going to be talking lots of Star Wars, but to do that, we need to have a nice, thick, hefty craft beer.
That's right, Brian, and of course, we need a high alcohol content for this hefty, awesome craft beer, and I do believe that this beer, the Narwhal, delivers on that.
Yes, the Narwhal from Sierra Nevada. I got to be honest with you, Josh, when I poured this Narwhal Stout, Imperial Stout, out, it looked like straight-up motor oil.
Well, that was the idea, and I specifically got an Imperial Stout because, the Imperial Stormtroopers and all that.
Dun, dun, dun. I am just nerding out right now, Josh. I can't contain my excitement. So let's just get through how Sierra Nevada describes Narwhal Imperial Stout. It says, Narwhal Imperial Stout is inspired by the mysterious creatures that thrive in the deepest fathom of the frigid Arctic Ocean, featuring incredible depth of malt flavor, rich with notes of espresso, baker's cocoa, roasted grain, and a light hint of smoke.
Ooh.
Narwhal is a massive, malt-flavored monster, aggressive but refined with a velvety smooth body and a decadent finish. Narwhal will age in the bottle for years to come. It is 10.5% alcohol.
Like you say, it looks like motor oil and is very smoky smelling.
Yeah, it is, and it came out of the brown bottle, of course.
Of course.
It's a dark label here. It's got kind of a whale on the front of it. It's a pretty simple design for the bottle, really.
It really is. But it's from Sierra Nevada, so I wasn't expecting some kind of crazy, art house thing.
Yeah, they keep their labels pretty simple. But, like I said, the drink itself, it looks like motor oil. I've said it once. I'm going to say it again. It looks like straight-up motor oil.
Well, one of the things I noticed, especially for a stout, is when I poured it, the head was short-lived. It kind of disappeared almost immediately. Did it do that for you?
It did. It did. I got a little bit of a ring of a head still left, and it's almost like a brownish color. I'm kind of nervous here.
Well, I think we should stop stalling then and take a drink and see if it's worth our time.
All right, here we go. Narwhal.
That's good. Tastes like motor oil.
It is good. Beer motor oil. Tastes like what you think a stout would taste like. That kind of bitterness. I'm not picking up chocolate here at all.
No, I'm not. And the texture of it and the backbite, it reminds me of something from the Guinness family, like the Guinness and the Dragon Milk style stout.
Yeah, kind of a Dragon Stout. It's more bitter than Dragon Stout, though.
Definitely a bit more bitter than Dragon Stout, but still kind of in that weird, thick backbite.
Yes, but like a true high alcohol content stout, it's giving me that nice warm feeling all over my body.
Yeah, that's your body slowly rejecting the poison.
Probably. All right, let's get one more drink and render our decision here.
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to say right now that if you don't like stouts, or you're kind of on the fence about stouts, I would not recommend this beer for you.
Definitely me either. But if you do like stouts, this is a really good stout. I for a stout lover, I would grab this again. But if this was my first stout, it definitely would scare me away, like you said.
Yeah, it's not for the new stout drinker, but yes, perfectly said. If you're into stouts, you're gonna like this. The high alcohol content will definitely do the job. I am a fan of stouts, so I'm going to give this a thumbs up.
I'm right there with you, Brian. I love stouts, and this particular stout is pretty good. Sierra Nevada makes a really good IPA that I really enjoy. So I wasn't too shocked that I enjoyed their stout. So I'm going to give this one a thumbs up, but if someone put a Guinness or a Dragon's Milk in front of me, I might grab one of those ahead of this one.
I think I would grab a Dragon's Milk first. I think I might grab this over a Guinness, though. Mainly for the alcohol content.
Yeah, I know. The taste of Guinness is forever with me. It was the stout that I popped my cherry on that stout. It was a wonderful drink. I used to get it all the time in the bar, so I have a fondness for it. And this Narwhal beer just isn't quite good enough for me to see through that fondness.
Okay, fair enough. Are you giving it a thumbs up, though? I think you said that already.
Yeah, I'm giving it a thumbs up because it is a good beer. It's just, compared to the other stouts I love, it's not really as good as those.
Okay, so that is 2 thumbs up for Sierra Nevada's Narwhal Imperial Stout. Now, stick with us through the break. Get ready to nerd out with the two of us. I can hardly contain my excitement. It is the Star Wars discussion.
Oh, boy. Can't wait.
Stick with us. It's nothing but Star Wars coming up after the break.
Beer, 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 I'm going for a beer. Beer, 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 I'm gonna drink some beer. I like drinking beer. Lovely, lovely beer. Beer, 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 I'm going for a beer. Beer, beer, beer.
Hello, Internet. This is Ohio Josh from episode 7.
This is Colin from episode 9. Not Colin, not to be confused with the body part.
This is Luke Yoder from Kansas Bible Company.
This is Derek, your glorified webmaster at 80shorror.net.
This is Chris from episode 20.
You're listening to the Philosophy Jerks.
And you are listening to Philosophy Jerks.
And you are listening to Philosophy Jerks.
And you are listening to the Philosophy Jerks.
And you're listening to the Philosophy Jerks.
It's not the east or the west side. No, it's not. It's not the north or the south side. No, it's not. It's the dark side. You are correct. In front of the Empire, to all you beta haters out there, we'll blow your planet up. What does thy bidding, my master? It's a disaster, Skywalker, we're after. What if he can be turned to the dark side? Yes, he'd be a powerful ally, another dark Jedi. He will join us or die. We got Death Star. 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 And you know that we got it. Death Star. And you know that we got it. Luke, get your ass over here right now. Come
Tosche Station. I gotta lay away on the power converter, but now you're treating me like a scruffy nerf murder.
Use the force and run to Dagobah, run to Dagobah. Luke, use the force.
Okay, welcome back. Star Wars. I wish that we could have some kind of audio crawl about what we're going to talk about here, Josh, but there's so much to cover. We have to condense it to one episode.
Yeah,
how do we do this?
It's really tough. I think I have a good idea. I think we should try to stay away from the obvious stuff. Like, there will be no discussion of Darth Jar Jar here. Nor are we going to get
done to death.
Yeah, way done to death by now. And we're not going to try to, do an hour's worth of episode trying to predict what the new movie is, especially as close as it is to release. Brian, what I thought we would do is kind of delve into more of a what if and more of a philosophical slant on Star Wars as a whole.
Well, that would fit us, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, let's start from the beginning. Do you remember? Do you have a memory of the first time you got into Star Wars, or when you got really excited about Star Wars?
Well, I have a confession. I mean, I have a memory when I first watched Star Wars, and I remember liking it, but I've never been excited or obsessed with Star Wars.
Okay.
What I like the most about Star Wars is that everybody likes it, and it's something that we can all share. Maybe not like everyone likes it, but more to the point of everyone knows about it, knows the story. You can use it as a good source of metaphor, that kind of thing. But, the first time I did watch it, though, it was a Thanksgiving dinner thing. Instead of football, my uncle had put on, the Star Wars trilogy. So the first cognitive memory I have of it was watching it in his living room on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, that's a good time to see it.
Oh, yeah. So it was way better than watching football. Even as a kid, I wasn't really into it. So it was really nice that there was a compromise, right? It was an okay movie for me, but my aunts and uncles really loved it, and they were willing to forego football to watch it with us. And that's kind of sums up or is a tiny example of what my relationship with Star Wars has always been.
Okay. Mine was a little different. So my family, there's no one really in my family that's into anything sci-fi or fantasy. So when they re-released the original trilogy in the theaters in, what was that, 1997?
Yeah, somewhere around there. I was in junior high, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're the same age. So we were 7th grade, and there was all the hype coming out that they were re-releasing them with some updates. And
they updated
I don't know, that was it. We'll probably touch on that a little bit, but so there was a friend that asked if I wanted to go see, and he had seen it before, and he asked if I wanted to go see episode 4 with him. And it hooked me, just the commercials. And, by that point, 97, there's, it was part of popular culture already, but I didn't really know all I knew was, Luke, I am your father. That's pretty much all I knew about Star Wars.
I'm guessing you learned that from Tommy Boy rather than watching Star Wars.
I heard it there, but it was part of the lexicon, you'd always just heard Luke, I am your father. So I went, saw it on the big screen for the first time, episode 4. Oh my God. I was hooked, just that first shot that everyone talks about. I kind of had that experience just when the Star Destroyer flies over the screen. From then on, I was hooked. And then I went and saw Empire Strikes Back by myself, actually on a rainy Saturday afternoon. We live close to the theater. My mom said, if you want to walk to the movie theater and see it, you can do it, which was a cool experience. So I got to see the original trilogy in the theaters for the first time, which was really cool. Now they're the special editions, so we can, there's a little bit of debate that they're not, the original movies as they were, but still, the first time I got to see all the original Star Wars was in the theaters. So that was quite a special experience for me.
Well, that's very lucky of you. However, you said one thing earlier. You said that all you really knew was Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
Well, technically, that's a misquote.
Okay.
So, and that's a very common misquote. In the movie, Darth Vader actually says, "No, I am your father," because
I am.
Yeah, he didn't say, "Luke, I am your father." He says, "No, I am your father."
Okay. Meaning?
Meaning, the quote that the one quote that drew you in was a misquote, and I guarantee you thought throughout most of your time of watching Star Wars that it was Luke, I am your father. Most people do, but that's what's funny about it, and that's kind of like an example of what Star Wars has become in our culture, is it's taking on its own life. The original idea or story almost takes a backseat to the entire universe of Star Wars, to the point where people, inject the wrong idea or remember the quotes wrong.
Right. I mean, that's something that happens when something becomes part of just the lexicon of popular culture. People remember it how they want to remember it themselves, I think, right? And when they retell it.
Oh, absolutely. I just find it fascinating. I mean, with the misquote here, it essentially has the same meaning, right? In both ways, Vader is revealing that he is the father of Luke Skywalker. So in this case, it doesn't really matter which one you remember.
Sure.
But overall, you're right. Once something gets as big as Star Wars and becomes as a household name as Star Wars is, the lexicon takes on a life of its own that's completely separated from the script and the truth of the movie. George Lucas even did this, to go back to the Star Wars that you've seen in theater. He retouched up on certain things, but he also changed aspects of the original trilogy to fit the modern times, or to fit an update or revision that he had in his head.
Sure. I mean, that's the constant debate amongst Star Wars fans. And so, yeah, for me personally, first time I saw Star Wars, the first time I saw Jabba the Hutt on screen was that CGI blob in episode 4. So, I didn't get the big exciting reveal by the time I got to Return of the Jedi. There's little differences that my experience is different from people who saw it the first time they were out.
Oh, definitely. And people born today that, never saw the original 4, 5, and 6, but instead saw the prequels first, they have a completely different point of view. In fact, I remember reading an article a couple weeks ago now, where this girl, I think she was maybe 19 or 20, had never seen any of the Star Wars ever, and she watched them from episode 1 all the way through episode 6. So she watched the prequels and then the old ones, and had never known anything. She didn't know that Vader was Luke's dad. Didn't know all the plot twists. She didn't realize that Anakin would become Vader. Those aspects that we take for granted as common knowledge, she had no idea. And she wrote, she blogged her experience of watching all the movies. And that was quite a different perspective of Star Wars that I'm not used to seeing or hearing from people.
Yeah, that's interesting, because if you watch it, if the first time you ever watch it is in that order, you're not surprised when Vader tells Luke that he's his father, right? It takes on a totally different perspective, where it's more you're excited as the viewer for Luke to learn it the first time, rather than you as the viewer learning it for the first time.
Oh, totally. But think about it this way too. When Leia kisses Luke in 4, that scene takes on a completely different meaning that we didn't get until after we watched, Empire Strikes Back. She didn't get that until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies in, right? I'm sorry, let me re-say that. Rather, what would have taken us 5 movies in to realize, she realized by after the 3rd movie.
The end of right. So her cringe moment of, oh, you just kissed your sister, was even a little bit different.
Well, yeah,
for us.
She said it took on a disturbing role, because even after the kiss moment, they were always flirting, and back when 4 came out, and before we realized who Leia was by the end of the 5th movie, there was a lot of sexual tension between Luke and Leia, as Luke was almost like Luke was competing for Leia over Han.
Right. Well, see, when I first saw the trilogy, I thought that too. I didn't know that part of the twist. I didn't know they were brother and sister until it's revealed in Return of the Jedi. So yeah, the first time I saw episode 4, I was like, oh, who does she actually like here, Han or Luke?
And that's the interesting thing about Star Wars. George Lucas had claimed that at least the skeleton structure of the prequels was in his head when he was writing the original Star Wars. And when you take that to be true, but you look at things like the Luke and Leia relationship, you're forced to either think that there is intentional incestuous undertones to the movie, or you're almost led to believe that George Lucas had no idea what he was doing until the original Star Wars blew up and he realized what he had.
I tend to fall on that side of the perspective. I mean, I don't really. He might have had some kind of outline in his head about how the character development was going to go, but I really don't think he had episode 1, 2, and 3 written. I mean, when what we know as episode 4 was released, it wasn't called episode 4 the first time it was released in the theater. It was just Star Wars.
Well, and the argument for that particular example is always, well, he had the story, kind of penned out, but he pitched the first movie as if that was the only one that would ever get made, which is why it is the only Star Wars movie to have a consistent start, middle, and end with no plans for a sequel or references to anything beyond itself.
Mm-hmm.
And but I agree with you, Brian. I really think that George Lucas didn't have it all penned out, simply because while George Lucas is a brilliant risk taker in film, if you look at his works prior and after Star Wars, they're a little risky, especially before Star Wars. Is he a Tolkien? No, he is not a J.R. Tolkien at all. I mean, in terms
I wouldn't argue with you on that.
Yeah, I don't think he built that universe. I think, and we'll kind of touch on this. I think the fans are the ones that built the universe.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I was going to say Lucas never got into detail of his world the way that Tolkien did, for example.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't. Tolkien had multiple languages, multiple cultures that interacted in a meaningful way. Whereas Lucas, when you get everyone in the Senate, it's one or two perspectives going back and forth between all these cultures across the entire galaxy, which makes no sense.
Well, one thing I'll give Lucas a lot of credit for, is he took from things that the way that Star Wars makes us kind of nerd out and, illuminate our imagination. He took the things from his childhood that did the same to him, and he was able to, combine them into all of one story. But the genius in that is it sets up such a great world for everyone's imagination to play within. Because there's really no limitations. I mean, you can use cultures that have, kind of ancient qualities to them, like the Sand People. They're a very primitive kind of culture, but at the same time, you're within a universe that has spaceships that go at the speed of light and sentient droids. And so it's like he created this ultimate imagination world for fans to play in, which I agree with you. It's kind of the lasting effect of Star Wars, right?
Absolutely, and it's one of the first works that was both able to be expanded upon, like you had described, but also accessible by the common person. When Lord of the Rings was circulating, and before Peter Jackson made all those movies, Lord of the Rings was really only accessible by a certain subset of people or culture of people. You didn't have your average Joe uncle, or at Thanksgiving, willing to talk about the various depths of Lord of the Rings and that Middle Earth world. With Star Wars, you can keep it really light. You can keep it, good guy versus bad guy. You can keep it cool in terms of the space battles, or you can get really in depth and philosophical with the political structure of the Empire and the Republic and the Rebellion. And there's even a mystical quality with the Force and the Jedi and the Sith.
Exactly. There's so many different directions you can take it. It's a great imaginary sandbox for anyone to play within that has even a slight interest in it.
But, however, so I think we're both in agreement that the expanded universe is where it's at with the Star Wars franchise. The original movies are the ones that we credit George Lucas for being the gateway that got us into all of this and got the ball rolling. But where I think a lot of people truly fall in love, at least the really observant and nerdy types are in the expanded universe. I remember people talking about the trilogy of books that took place after the original trilogy, with Han and Leia's kid and Luke's kids and all of that. And I remember people referring to that as a work of genius and better than the movies. And that was before I was even really... That was before the prequels. That was even before the original trilogy was redone in theater. So, you know, the expanded universe is really, really important. However, when Disney bought the franchise from George Lucas, they decided to remove the canon on all the extended universe. So it's no longer part of the universe. Normally... They haven't, but... Yeah, they have. Yeah, the extended universe is not canon.
Right. But there's certain things they have kept, though, right?
Well, yeah,
like the Clone Wars and Rebels, certain video games and others. It gets kind of confusing.
There are aspects that they're taking from the extended universe. It's true, but they're rather than leaving them as they are and paying homage, like, you know, John Smith over in England wrote this story about you know, Rex from the Clone Wars, let's say. And who was Rex? Where did he grow up? What was his life like? And all of that stuff. And what they're doing is they're pilfering the best ideas from there and incorporating it into their own agenda, which is, you know, either good or bad. That's up for debate. But more importantly is they're two things. They're telling the original author, sorry, it wasn't good enough for the universe. And two, the stuff that was good, we're just going to go ahead and take for ourselves. And there are some ethical issues with that, big time. And when you think of a sci-fi extended universe, where it differs from almost all other types of extended universes is the idea of canon is super important. The reason why the Star Wars extended universe got so big and so vast and so encompassed so much was because George Lucas gave his blessing. He said, okay, you can't touch with anything in the movies, but everything else is fair game, and we'll consider it second law canon or second level canon or something like that. And that allowed, you know, the fans to have a say in how this universe developed. Now, it's Disney picking the best ideas, but keeping it within their realm. They're the ones creating the universe. And that's a big difference.
It is a difference. There's certain things where you're right. Ethically, I have a bit of a problem with it. But you know what? If Disney is going to continue to... how should I put this? Disney is going to continue this universe going, right? They've already got episode 7 coming out. I'm sure they're going to do 8 and 9. They'll go until people don't care anymore. I mean, would you disagree on that?
Not at all. In fact, they've come out and said that there'll be Star Wars until people, you know, stop showing up for them.
Yeah. So in a way, they almost kind of have to, right? If expanded universe stuff that happened after Return of the Jedi, people that wrote stuff that happens after Return of the Jedi, if you're going to keep going after that and you own this property, a lot of that canon, it's just, I guess I look at it as that's just the breaks and the risk you took about writing stuff that happened after Return of the Jedi.
Well, that I agree with you, but Brian, I think the best, aside from that trilogy of books that happened right after Return of the Jedi, I think the best fan fiction and the best extended universe fiction takes place in the Old Republic, which the new movies they're not even referencing that era, really. Yeah. But all of that is no longer considered canon. And I don't know about you, but I think Capcom built a genius Old Republic universe. I mean, it was a great universe with no need to cancel it out. So, yeah. And here's the reason why. Disney said, we're going to take this out because one day we might decide to go back and revisit it. So, yes, the comics and the books and everything aren't going anywhere. You can still dive in. But as a purist, as a nerd, it lacks something without being a part of the canon. It's like the difference between it's like the difference between that new Harry Potter extended universe book coming out with J.K. Rowling and going to fanfiction.net and reading, Harry Potter fanfiction. There's a difference there, and the difference is the creator or the people that run the show go, yes, this has our blessing. they see what the overall vision for Star Wars is, and we accept this as part of the canon, and we will design the universe around that.
I'm with you that it does seem a little unnecessary that they're cutting out the Old Republic stuff, because a lot of that has no bearing on the 6 films, you know. And if they're going to do films that continue to take place after Return of the Jedi, it does seem a little silly to wipe out the older canon. Some of the newer canon are older. Well, it's not canon anymore. But stuff they wrote after Return of the Jedi, some of it I'm not shedding a tear for. Like, how many times did they bring back Emperor Palpatine to the point where I just found it ridiculous? You know,
yeah, you're right.
The nerd in me says that if you keep bringing back Palpatine, it takes away the sacrifice Luke and Vader made at the end of Return of the Jedi. Yeah,
you're absolutely right on that one, Brian. But on the other hand, the Massacre of Endor, after Return of the Jedi, when the Death Star blew up above the moon, what happened? Where did all that debris go? And that question now was answered in an unsatisfied way, but it was answered. Now it's gone back to not being answered, and probably never will be.
Yeah, I'm reading that new comic series that takes place directly at the end of Return of the Jedi, and I read the first comic, and I got to tell you, they touched on something in that comic that tickled my nerd bone. That sounds disgusting, but you know, when towards the end of Return of the Jedi, after Darth Vader dies and Luke takes him out on that shuttle, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The Imperial shuttle ship. I always wondered as a kid, how did that shuttle not get shot down by any of the rebels trying to attack the Death Star? Luke just, flies out of the Death Star like no big deal. They touched on that in the comics, and I love that. They were like, no, it's Commander Skywalker. Don't shoot him.
Oh, nice. So they finally gave an answer. So
yeah.
And maybe
there's certain things like that I'm excited for. I'm getting some answers that I kind of always had questions to.
And right now it's going to be a wallop, right? They're going to come at it full force. But after it takes off and we get, 6 spin-off TV shows and 4 more franchises and movies, it's going to... Are you afraid it's going to dilute itself and all of a sudden those answers are just going to be kind of a fan service more than an actual story in the universe?
Yes, I am. It's definitely a fear I have. But there's a part of me that thinks that the imaginary world of the Star Wars universe is so big that I just think there can always be stories written about it in some form or another. Even if it's, I don't know, like even if they're making previous expanded universe books non-canon anymore, there's still so many fans that are going to write something that even if it's not considered canon, people are still going to say, that's a really great story. And I don't care if it's canon or not. That was a great story that I loved that took place within this universe.
And ultimately you're right. And where I'm coming from and placing the importance on canon is not with the spirit of Star Wars, but more is in the spirit of a science fiction fan, a universe fan. And how important it is to make sure that the universe is as cohesive as it possibly can be so that you don't break the immersion that you're no longer in that universe. If you see Darth Vader doing a breakdance in a comic book, you're going to go, that's not Darth Vader. You're abusing the story. Yeah. But when you read a comic book that answers your question about, how come they didn't shoot Luke Skywalker down, it makes sense. It's cohesive in the universe and it is now expanding that universe, literally. So my fear is that Star Wars is going to get to a point where the Marvel universe is kind of getting to, where it's just a bunch of fan services, a bunch of loose plots that kind of vaguely tie everything together, and then they all converge on points here and there, like the Avengers Infinity War or Civil War, Captain America Civil War. I'm afraid that the Star Wars universe is going to kind of go in that direction. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be any good TV or movie about it in that kind of extended universe, but it's all going to be, through one type of filter. Whereas the old extended universe that's not canon anymore, that was written by a bunch of different people from a bunch of different viewpoints. And while some did have Vader breakdancing, or the equivalent of that, there was more of the little things being answered. Because you have fans that are going to notice this stuff even more than the writers and the actors because they're obsessed with it.
Right.
And they're answering things on a level of detail that, Disney might not be comfortable with diving into necessarily, or they might not. It might not test well with audiences across the nation or something. But I think we can go back and forth on this all day long. But I
think you're right.
I think we've come to a general consensus that it's sad that they got rid of the extended universe in terms of canon, but going forward, there's still a lot of hope, a new hope, if you will, for the new extended universe.
I'm excited that it's going to continue to live on and grow. So there's something, before we go to break, Josh, we should give a little hint on what we're going to talk about after break here.
I think that's a good idea, Brian. There's one thing about the Star Wars universe that drew me in, that captivates me more than any other aspect of that world, and that is the Force. We have Jedi, we have Sith, and we have all these in between Force users, and then the very aspect of what the Force is. And I'm going to go ahead and say that the midichlorian bullshit is not going to be considered in the argument.
Yeah, can't we make that non-canon anymore?
Nope, sorry.
I would be happy about that.
That was grandfathered in.
All right, my midichlorian count is high. Stick with us. We're going to take a quick break and get back and talk about the nature of the Force.
Ooh.
Coming up on the Philosophy Jerks.
Ooh.
Ben? You will go to the
philosophyjerks.com.
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
Jedi Master? Yoda. You seek Yoda.
Yoda?
Clear your mind of questions. You must unlearn what you have learned. A Jedi strength flows from the Force. That is the way of things. For my ally is Force, and a powerful ally it is. Its energy surrounds, combines us. Luminous beams are we, not this true matter. You must feel the Force around you. Treat you, be free. My ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Its energy surrounds, combines us. Adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves not these things. For 800 years have I trained Jedi. A Jedi strength flows from the Force. Luminous beams are we, not this true matter. You must feel the Force around you. Treat you, be free. Feel the Force. Feel the Force. Feel the Force around you. Feel the Force. What you have learned.
Okay, welcome back. I had to calm down a little bit from my nerdgasm, Josh, but I'm ready to continue on.
Yeah, I sat here patiently waiting for you to quit running in circles and yelling, "Luke is the best, down with Vader."
I'm playing with my lightsaber.
Oh boy.
I didn't mean that in a weird way. All right. Anyways, before we went to break, we talked a little bit about how we wanted to talk about the nature of the Force and how it might not be as cut and dry as some people find it to be.
Oh, absolutely. I think most common Star Wars fans know what the Force is. They know that there's a light and a dark side, and they know that the dark side is evil and the light side is good. Beyond that,
sure, that's what the movies tell us.
Yeah, that's exactly what the movies tell us. But beyond that, I don't think people think too far into what the Sith are, what the Jedi are, what their ideals are, and do they live up to them. So, I mean, we could make a whole episode on just the Force, right?
Sure.
So what I wanted to kind of do was kind of hone it down to a theory I found doing research for this episode. And the theory goes something like that the Jedi are actually really the evil bad guys. And
okay, now you're throwing out something big here, so
I am.
I'll let you go.
Just let me go with it. The Jedi are more evil than the Sith. I think that's how I want to say it.
Okay.
And in order to understand the theory I'm going to throw out, there's two things that have to happen. The first thing is you have to divorce the idea of the Jedi and the Sith and the light and dark side of the Force. One is not the other, right? So the Jedi aren't the light side, and the light side doesn't equal Jedi. And the same thing for the Sith and the dark side. So you have to be able to do that. And on top of that, we have to kind of review what the Jedi and the Sith codes are exactly. What drives both of these sides? What philosophies do they live by? So, Brian, what I thought I would do is I would read off the Jedi code and the Sith code, and then from there we can kind of tackle this theory of mine. And I want to see your opinion and if I can convince you that the Sith are the way to go.
Let the nerding out continue.
Okay, so let's start with the Jedi Code. That's the one that that's the side that everybody roots for mostly. Yoda and Luke Skywalker and the whole gang, right?
Mm-hmm.
The code they live by is simply, there is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, only harmony. There is no death. There is only the Force. Now, let's compare that to the Sith Code. And the Sith Code is simply, peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. And through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall set me free. Now, Brian, my first question is have you ever looked up or read the mission statements for the Sith and the Jedi? And if not,
I have once before.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on let's start with the Jedi Code. What are your the general thoughts on the Jedi Code?
Well, the Jedi Code to me, if we're gonna, I can't help but relate it to something I know in real life, right? So I kind of relate it more to a, should I say more maybe a Taoist or a Zen perspective of the world, where the goal is to avoid emotions altogether and just try to gain a centered way of feeling, or a centered perspective of everything.
I think you would be pretty close to the mark of that one, Brian. There is definitely a Taoist or a Zen feel to the Jedi Code. But most importantly, I think the aspect that we have to really focus on here is that they generally, as an order, don't want to get involved, right? They don't want to be tempted by power, and they don't want to be lost in ignorance, and they want things to be controlled and at least to the point of harmony, right? Everything has a place, and there's a certain way to do everything. But among that, they disassociate themselves from love and passion and marriage and all of that, simply because a loved one could compromise your power in the Force, right? It could turn you to the dark side. So the main goal of the Jedi Code is to not get involved with the dark side so that when you die, you don't actually die. You get reunited with the Force and become like a Force ghost, like Yoda and Obi-Wan and eventually Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, compare that to the Sith Code. What do you think about the Sith Code?
The Sith Code, to me, you can see where they would dabble more in what you would call the dark side of the Force. But to me, when you read it and listening to you read it, it seems more of a almost a realistic way of how most people live their life, right? I think most people like to indulge in their passions and feel that they're more in control of things.
Oh, absolutely. And let's be clear here, too. The dark side of the Force doesn't necessarily mean evil. I think it literally means it relies on the darker emotions in order to move yourself forward in that code. Whereas the Jedi are more, the more you renounce, the more you are closer to being a Jedi.
Right.
So let's take these codes and break them down a little further. And let's compare what the Jedi do versus what their codes are, and what the Sith do and what their codes are.
All right.
So let's look at the Jedi. We've established that they're not passionate. They're not going to get involved. They're, laid back, detached from everything, so that they can join up with the Force after their death.
And that was one of the criticisms of the prequels too, right? That too often the Jedi's just sat around talking, and there was really nothing going on.
Well, is that necessarily true? I mean, the Jedi raised the army. The Jedi are directly involved with the politics of the Republic, so much to the point where the Republic relies on them to quote unquote protect them and keep the order going. It was established in the prequels that there is an intergalactic library with, we're led to believe, all the knowledge in the galaxy that the Jedi have collected, but only Jedi are allowed to go in there.
Yeah, that one kind of didn't sit right with me.
And let's look at something like Mace Windu. When Mace Windu found out who Palpatine was in the prequel, what did Mace Windu do? He lost his shit. He flipped a lid. Yeah. And the entire time, Anakin Skywalker is watching this going, what the fuck, dude? You're a Jedi. What are you doing? And,
You're diving too far into your emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the same order that is forcing Anakin to give up the only woman he has ever loved, and the mother of his children. And in order to become a Jedi, he has to give that up, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't see a good reason to. And then when you start to see, Mace Windu trying to kill the Emperor or the Supreme Leader or whatever his title was at that time, on top of Yoda going to war with all the clones and shit, going to war against the droids, and kind of guiding the entire Republic in a certain direction, and hoarding all the knowledge, and basically going against all of the code that they set forth. I mean, it almost
everything
seems like
they taught him.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like the Jedi are setting themselves up for failure. And not only that, but they're setting themselves up for a kind of failure that kind of fucks over a lot of people. If you don't fall in line with what the Jedi believe, you're not really going to be, taken seriously on their council, and possibly not taken seriously or have many allies in the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, and Anakin, Anakin even says when Mace Windu has Palpatine down, and he says, no, he must be given trial, and right away Mace Windu says, no, he's too dangerous to be kept alive. So it's another contradiction that he sees right in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, sure. The Jedi are all about establishing a order, but order according to who? The Jedi?
Apparently so.
Yeah, I mean, they're almost like a modern day America, where it's like they're bringing the Jedi way to your planet coming soon by any means necessary.
Right. And if you don't like it, we can move shit with our mind and slice you with our lightsabers.
Well, yeah, and to be clear, I don't think that they're bullies and that they're going to be, landing on planets and hacking people up. But
sure.
When, the Clone Wars were happening and the Jedi had to choose to save one planet over another, You can't tell me if all things being equal, they wouldn't choose the planet that was more friendly to the Jedi Order in the Jedi way versus the other planet that wouldn't happen to be part of the Jedi way or see value in the Jedi Order.
Yes. Now, let's look at the Sith, though, and I need you to sell me on why the Sith aren't necessarily quote-unquote evil.
Well, this one is going to be a little trickier. Because what I'm trying to argue is that the dark side isn't necessarily evil. In fact, the dark side is self-help in a nutshell. And pull yourself up by the bootstraps and take charge of your own life in a nutshell. Let me set up that first, and then I'll tell you why the Sith fail at the dark side. So if you look at the Sith code, the first thing they say is peace is a lie. Now, I'm sure your or most people's initial reaction to that line would be something along the line of peace rather than war is a lie. And I would argue that, no, I think that here peace is a lie, especially because it's being contrasted with there is only passion. I think peace is a lie is a direct reference to, you know how you climb the corporate ladder and become the CEO, and you don't have to do anything anymore. You're set. You've reached the goal. Well, right. I think what the Sith Code is saying is, no, that state is a lie. There is only passion. Either you're passionate or you're not. And if you
it's not like if you reach a certain level, you're all of a sudden happy. There's still something you're craving.
Right. You'll never be happy according to the Sith Code. Or you'll be happy for a while, but it's not enough to sustain you, and you'll have to keep going. And right away, that notion right away is way more realistic than what the Jedi want of you. As being a being in the universe, right? The Jedi almost want you to be something that you're not and can't be necessarily. Whereas the Sith is
loveless, selfless.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Where with the Sith, they seem to be saying, okay, let's start with the fact that you're a human being and, you know, or you're a creature of the universe. Let's go there. And let's start from that notion and see what we can build off of. What can you become given your limitations? Right. And then, you know, through the code, they go, you know, through your passions, if you hone them, if you work hard at what you care about, you'll gain strength. You'll gain talent and the ability to perform those passions with a skill. And with that skill, you'll become powerful, right? If you're the best blacksmith in the town, you have a certain kind of power over certainly everybody else, but maybe even other blacksmiths. And after a while, with all that power, you eventually gain victory, right? If you hone your skills over a long period of time and keep practicing them, eventually you're going to be the best at what you do, right? It's just a matter of time.
You can relate that to anything. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. I mean, sports, perfect example, right? You practice hard enough, you try hard enough, eventually your goal is to win the championship, you become the best.
Absolutely. And through that victory, your self-doubt, your vindication is answered. You know, you become something. You become a Sith Lord. And through your chains being broken, the Force, by exercising the power of the Force, which is the most powerful thing in the universe according to the Star Wars world, by utilizing the power of that Force, you are set free from the limitations and the drudgery of being a being in the universe. And you reach a plateau. But rather than the Jedi saying, okay, you're in heaven now, you were reunited with the Force, the Sith are going, well, that might be good for a little while, but eventually that's not going to sustain you, and you're going to have to increase your skills. Well, the obvious way to increase your skills is to become better than the person that taught you. And in the Sith way, because the Sith code came from a warrior race of people, the only way you can beat the one that taught you is by, you know, defeating them in battle, by killing them. So it's you almost get to a point where it gets a little unfair to compare the Jedi and the Sith, right? The Sith come from a warrior race, and the Jedi are a collection of enlightened and laid back smart people, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. the Sith that we've come to know, the Darth Maul, the Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, what happened with them? Why are they so evil? Why is the Empire only good with human beings? And why do they go around killing whole planets of people? Well, the answer to that is simply power. Power corrupts you. And after having so much power that they're literally running the galaxy, it corrupts their being. And they almost move that, where peace is a lie, there is only passion. In the Sith Code, that's the first step. That's your first goal or your first law. But with the Sith that we have come to know, they've almost moved that line to the very end. So they start with, through passion, I will gain strength. And blah, 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 blah. The Force shall set me free. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. So instead of starting with from a place of what I am is not all I can be, what they've now turned into is, I'm already good. How do I keep getting more power?
And better. Yeah, how do I get more power and become better?
So there are two ideas to take away from this, or two lessons in my opinion. And that is...
Well, let's...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. I'll wait till you're finished with the point.
Okay, so my 2 points to take away from here are the Jedi aren't all they're cracked up to be, right? They have gotten a lot of people killed. They have hurt a lot of people through their inaction. Now, the Sith have caused a lot of mayhem, right? The Emperor and his behind the scenes thing. But if you really stop and think about it, the only Sith that we meet are the ones that are under the control or at least aligned with Emperor Palpatine. We don't really meet a lot of Sith in the movies that are separate from that. Just like we don't meet a lot of Jedi that are separate from being directly involved with the Republic and the governance of the galaxy.
Yeah, the only one we kind of did was Count Dooku, but then, of course, they made him aligned with Palpatine, so kind of squashed that whole angle they could have took.
Well, according to the Sith Code, if another Sith is going to get involved in another Sith's affairs, eventually they're going to have to fight, and one is going to have to kill the other, right?
Right.
You have to gain more power by killing your adversaries and your peers. So
there's also
what is your reaction?
There's also
to that?
Well, I was just thinking that one thing we didn't even touch upon too. That one thing the Jedis do is they take children away from their families because, again, I don't want to get into midichlorian counts, but they recognize that they're strong within the Force, and they, with the child not really even having any choice, they pull children away from the family and say, "Well, you're a Jedi now, unless you fail, and then we'll just kind of outcast you."
Right.
There's these shades of gray areas that it's like, well, wait a minute, is that necessarily a good thing to do? I don't know.
Well, let's look at the example of Anakin Skywalker, because Luke isn't really a fair example, because all he's known is Obi-Wan's, Obi-Wan's been around him at some point since birth.
Right.
But with Anakin, we have Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan straight up taking him from his house. I mean, there was a whole thing involved where there was a bet and the pod race and yada yada.
Yeah, we'll get you out of slavery, but we're going to leave your mother in slavery. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I will admit Qui-Gon Jinn did attempt to barter and bet his mother's freedom as well. But when that didn't pan out, it was almost like well, you're not really that important, so I guess you're on your own. They didn't return.
Sorry.
I mean, once everything went down, they didn't return. They didn't make any effort once they were off the planet. They just kind of left it at that. You can't tell me a squad of Jedi couldn't come in here and go, "Yeah, we want this woman. What are you gonna do, Hutz?"
Yeah. Fuck you, Watto.
I mean, it would have been the good thing to do, but they don't do good things. They only do things that preserve the balance of the Force, which is kind of fucked up.
There's the crux of it to me. That's the part that makes me go, okay, maybe the Jedi aren't always so good. But I guess someone on the side of the Jedis would argue, well, using the passion because Anakin loves his mother and it's, the right thing to do would be going to get her. They would say that would be acting too much on your passions.
Well, perhaps, yeah, but the fact that how do I put this? The fact that they feel so passionate about Anakin's ability is also called into question with that very logic.
Ah, yes.
Like, so what? He has the highest midichlorian rate known to man, and he could be an ultimate force wielder and a great asset to the Jedi army or the Jedi Council.
We must take him before the Sith do. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, okay, so you're not passionate about saving the mother because, passions, but you're really passionate about getting Anakin. And Qui-Gon Jinn is so passionate that he steps up and defies Yoda and Mace Windu and the rest of the council by going, no, look, motherfuckers, this kid is the shit. Let's get him.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the Jedi only apply their code when it's beneficial to them. And I don't think that,
isn't that a great analogy to religion in real life, though?
Yeah, exactly.
People always want to look at the good side of it and disregard when they are counter to the ideals of it.
Absolutely. And I'm convinced that if given the choice of saving a starship full of non-Force users or non-Jedi and a starship full of, let's say, 10 Jedi, I think that they more often than not would make the reasoning of, we should save the 10 Jedi because if those 10 Jedi live, we can save more lives than we would save today by saving the starship full of, 10,000 people.
Oh no, the Jedi are utilitarians.
Yeah, right, and that might look okay to everybody but the people on that other starship. To them, the Jedi are evil scum that left them to die.
Well, then they are lost, Josh.
I'm just saying that the Jedi get way more credit than they deserve.
It's a fascinating idea, and one only philosophical nerds like us are probably debating in. But I hope that people think about it from that perspective. I'm interested if this conversation struck you a little bit. I want to hear what people think, because I know we have Sith fans out there.
I'm a Sith fan through and through. I don't necessarily agree with the Empire and a lot of his actions and political philosophies, but when you break down the Sith and the Jedi Code and just strip away everything else and put those two up, I find myself agreeing with the Sith way more often than I do the Jedi way.
We'll get into it here in the Q&A a little bit, but before we go to break, I'm kind of hoping that's what Kylo Ren in the new movie is. I hope he kind of touches on that gray area somewhere in between. I hope he's not just straight easy evil.
See, here's my thought on Kylo Ren in the new movie. I think that his role is being drastically overplayed. He's part of something called the Knights of Ren, and I think that Kylo Ren is probably just a lapdog, right? He's like one of several. I don't think that he's going to be a big villain. Either that or he's fucking Luke Skywalker, because where's Luke been on all the posters and all the trailers?
Oh, let's save it for the Q&A, Josh.
I think there's no choice but to.
All right. So stick with us. One more break. We're going to come back, do a couple Star Wars related Q&A, and then we'll wrap everything up. So stick with us here on the Philosophy Jerks.
The internet is vast and expansive, but you can find us at philosophyjerks.com.
Today's agenda, got the suitcase up in the central. Go to room 112, tell them Blanco sent you. Deal with strangers, if no money exchanges. I got these kids and rangers, believe them niggas brainless. All they told is stainless, you just remainers. Calm as possible, make the deal go through. If not, here's 12 shots, we know how you do. Please make your killings clean, slugs up in between. They eyes like true lies, kill them and flee the scene. Let's bring back the coke or the cream, or else your life is on the shelf. We mean this front, the cats we fucking with.
Okay, Josh, here we go. Let's get rolling right into the Star Wars Q&A. We got two good ones here I want to go with.
Let's hear them.
All right, cue the music. Here we go.
I'm just waiting for the Sunday mail. When you control the mail, you control information.
All right, this first one comes from Darth Jar Jar. That's all they're going to put I don't want to spend the time getting into the Darth Jar Jar theory. You can YouTube that. But the question's an interesting one, and it says, hey guys, I had a cool thought. And the thought was, what if at birth Luke and Leia had been switched to their homes? As in, what if Leia had gone to Tatooine with Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, and Luke was sent to Alderaan to become a prince?
Oh, man.
What do you think would have happened?
That is a great question. I mean, that hits like a lot of nerves, really.
I know, right?
Well, what's your initial thought?
Well, I guess my initial thought is the story would be pretty much the same. It would just be Leia. It would just be the hero would be, female centered, and Leia would have been the Jedi, and Luke would have kind of. Although, you know what, that would throw a kink into the plan, because it's not like you can have. I mean, you could, I guess. Now, nowadays you could have Luke and Han fall in love. But
Brian,
this
was a galaxy far, far away in a time long, long ago. So way before the gay rights movement. I don't think that would have flew, especially with the Empire running shit.
Yeah, I guess you're right. They weren't down with that yet. So I guess that would have made it. I guess the change would have been you could have still had the Leia and Han love story, but it would make it different because now Leia's the Jedi, giving into her passions of love, falling in love with Han. I don't know. It would. This changes the story. It changes the whole mythos, I should say, of the Jedi.
Well, I have a thought.
Forward.
I have a thought here, and it's a very feministic one. So let me lay it on you and see what you think.
Oh boy! All right, here we go.
Your idea is that the story would be relatively the same, except there would be an added controversy of Leia giving into her passions for Han. Am I right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I would argue that the kind of life that Luke had on Tatooine, Leia would never even come close to having. And I base this argument on the idea that let's look at Luke. Luke was a farm boy. Luke repaired droids. He hung out with the guys. He was well accepted in the society. He kind of had his own identity there. But during the New Hope, if you look around at all the women, they were kind of relegated to the background. Did you see?
Yeah, they really were.
Did you see the aunt out in the farm doing farm work, or was it Uncle Owen?
It was Owen.
Why?
Aunt Beru was just cooking food and pouring blue water.
So why would Leia be any different? I think Leia would have had a very female-oriented upbringing on Tatooine. And when we look at the prequels, especially at Anakin's mom, the way that she was treated, I know she was a slave and Leia wasn't, but I don't think women were given a lot of respect and opportunity like men were, even slave men, on the desert planet. So I think that I don't think that Leia would have been obsessed with leaving Tatooine from a good perspective. I think she would have had a different kind of upbringing. I don't think Leia's personality would have changed. I think she still would have been abrasive and harsh and, don't put up with any bullshit kind of person.
Right.
But I think that would have turned her into more of a rebel than Luke even ever was. I think that Leia would have a lot of rough edges, and I don't think that she would have looked at the Jedi as something that she would have been wanting to be a part of. Or the dark side. I think that she would relate more to the Han Solo kind of life.
Obi-Wan and Yoda foresaw this, and that's why they put Luke on Tatooine.
If you want to go that route, but let's work within the bounds of the question that if they're switched, and let's take a look at what Luke would have become. Because let's stop here. I'm presenting the idea that Leia would have left Tatooine as a angry rebel, most likely, and not had big dreams of flying spaceships. Because remember, Luke wanted to get out into outer space and fly ships because he was obsessed with them. He was obsessed with pods and building them. I don't think Leia would have developed that obsession because she wouldn't have been allowed to tinker with that stuff. Uncle Owen probably wouldn't have let it happen. And more so, the society that she grew up in wouldn't have been too keen to afford her opportunity to do such things. So I don't think she would have been obsessed with leaving the planet because she wanted to play with a bigger droid. I think she would have wanted to leave the planet out of spite, out of wanting to have an identity and live a life. And
she couldn't stay complacent.
No, not at all. Whereas Luke was very easy to be complacent in certain things. But I think Leia would have...
God, he would have been unbearable as a prince, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll get into that in just a second, but I think Leia would have left. I don't think Leia ever would have developed her Force abilities like Luke did. Luke didn't even know he had the fucking Force until he went and talked to Yoda.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, he kind of had an idea. Well, he had a...
Well, he kind of did. Obi-Wan was teaching him.
Kind of, yeah.
On the, when he was practicing with the helmet and the lightsaber and blocking the...
Yeah, but...
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about, but that wasn't Luke confident with the Force. That was Luke on a tricycle. Luke confident in the Force didn't come until after he trained with Yoda. And that's the level that Luke and Leia deserve to be at with their, midichlorian content. And by the way, let me take a pause here and go back to a little thing in our episode. Earlier in the episode, the Force is handed down biologically, right, from mother and father to son or daughter. Yet when the Jedi train them, they go and rip them out of their family tree, effectively ending that bloodline. Anyways, going back to the question.
God, I hate the whole midichlorian thing, Josh.
Yeah, I do too. It's insane. So I don't think Leia would have developed her Force beyond what Luke developed it in New Hope. I don't think it would have gotten to anything beyond that, because I don't think she ever would have made it to Yoda. I think she would have looked at Obi-Wan going, "You motherfucker, you put me here, and you made me live this life for what?" So I think she would have boot, scooted, and boogie and ended up something like Han Solo or Boba Fett, where she's kind of like a hero for hire or a villain for hire, basically like a Firefly style, where they're just out for an adventure. Meanwhile, like Alderaan, we have pussy-ass Luke, who was a pussy when he was on Tatooine. Let alone living a life where everything's provided for him. He's always fucking right. People are bowing, sucking his dick left and right. He would have been so he would have became such a narcissist, I think. I think he would have been a horrible utilizer of the Force. And I think when Vader came to realize that Luke was powerful in the Force, maybe not his son, but powerful in the Force, he would have had no problem convincing him to go to the dark side. Zero.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So not only, I don't think it would have been the same movie at all. I think it would have been very, very different if those two were separated at birth. In fact, I think the Skywalker bloodline most likely would have ended, because Luke and Vader would have killed the Emperor. Luke would have gotten really good at Sith, killed Vader, wouldn't have any kids, grow old and die, and there's no more Skywalkers worth of shit.
And the Empire would have continued.
Yeah, absolutely, unscathed. So I think... I think it would have been a completely different movie. I don't think the Jedi would have rebounded like they did after Luke came to power. Because remember, Luke is the cornerstone of the Jedi revival after after Order 66 and after the Empire falls and all of that. Well, if Luke isn't there to do that, there's no Empire or there's no Jedi to come back to. So the Jedi, I think, would have been delegated to like Yoda in the swamps, that kind of shit. And the Empire
died
and the
with
Sith
them, probably. Yeah.
Would have just like taken over the galaxy.
It would be you're right. It would be a whole different story. Which I hate to cut you off, but in the sake of time, which kind of leads into our last question here, Josh, which comes from just Kevin. Didn't go into detail. It just says Kevin, and it's the standard question, but we need to touch on it. What do you expect in this new Star Wars movie, Episode 7, The Force Awakens? We're both going to be seeing it this week. Let's give a sped up version because everyone's been speculating forever now. Just briefly, what do you see happening, Josh?
Well, honestly, I see lots of lens flare.
Oh, lens flare, J.J. Abrams.
No, honestly, I'm expecting a pretty good action movie, a pretty good sci-fi movie. I think Disney has a lot invested in it. I think it's really going to reboot the franchise. I definitely think it'll be better than the prequels, possibly better than New Hope and Return of the Jedi. But I expect it to flatline pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's already rebooted our excitement. I mean, look at us. We were pretty much. I mean, we still liked Star Wars, but you and I hadn't really talked about it that much after the prequels. I think it kind of killed a lot of the. I don't know how I should say it. The passion I had for it, right? I mean, I still had a love for Star Wars, but the prequels really did kill the passion for me for a while. And then when it was announced that Disney had bought it and they're going to kind of revive it and keep it going, I can't deny that passion got reignited, and nothing I've seen so far in the previews or anything that I've read has swayed me to think that it's going to ruin it for me. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited. I like that they've kept it kind of close to the chest as far as what the story is going to be. They've just given you a little bit, Kylo Ren, the Knights of Ren. We both know that. They've showed you the characters in the previews, but they haven't really gotten into it. I really like that they're bringing back original characters, even though they've been so tight-lipped on Luke's role, which is driving me crazy because I really want to know what Luke's role is going to be. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be really hard for it to be terrible. Of course, I said that in 1999 when I went to see Phantom Menace on opening day, which is another story. But I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to see the story continue. I don't think Luke's going to be bad. I'm throwing that out there. I would hate it. I will hate it, Josh, if Luke has turned bad.
I wouldn't hate it.
Because it would just... I would, because to me, it ruins the whole character arc and sacrifice that Luke and Vader made at the end of Return of the Jedi. Luke Skywalker twice chose death rather than turning to the dark side. He didn't die either time, but he made that choice twice rather than turning evil. So I don't get the point of him turning evil now.
Well, let me lay on you this. Let me lay this on you really quick, because it's a big theory, but I want to get through it really quick. So look at that Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. He's cocky. He's dressed all in black. He has very little disregard to the life he takes when he tries to save Leia. He is on his way to becoming like Anakin. He's very cocky and passionate. And just sure of himself and his ability. And we know where that led Anakin. I don't see why it would be a shock if Luke went that way either. What if the Skywalkers aren't the ones for the Jedi? What if the Skywalkers are the ones for the Sith? And what if
they're just a blight to the Jedi?
Yeah, I mean, what if the sacrifice that Luke made for Vader and Vader made for Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi speaks more to the exception rather than the rule with that family?
That could be, and that's a good theory.
But
I think you and I are going to have to talk about that more later.
But here's my last thought on the new movie. That new damn droid, the ball with the little stupid head on the top, physically makes no fucking sense. Zero. What the fuck is that shit? That's almost that is on par with Jar Jar in stupidity.
Yeah, but at least that I can see. Okay. Real quick.
I'm a little ball that rolls around sand, blah, 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 blah. I ignore all physical properties.
But at least that little ball could roll on more terrain. Like in Return of the Jedi, when R2's just rolling around on the forest floor like it's no big deal, that doesn't make any sense. At least as a ball could roll over top of any kind of terrain.
Perhaps, but I think the droids in the droid army were the best in terms of mobility. They had feet. They had fucking legs and feet.
Mobility, yes, but God, they sucked. I mean, there was no tension with them. You never felt that they were a threat to anything when the Jedi are around.
Well, that's
a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other discussion. There's actually a really good cracked video on why in the Star Wars universe, basically the droids were programmed to feel pain so they could be tortured by everybody. They're the second class citizen of the universe. But that's another video and another theory for another day.
And we're getting to super nerd territory here. We're going to have to wrap this up. Let's get to the music that was played on this very special episode, Josh. What was the first song?
The first song is it's 15 years old already. That is the Star Wars Gangsta Rap by none other than Jason Barron. I remember seeing this video on Newgrounds back in the day. It was funny then, it's still funny now, and some of it's actually got a pretty good flow for a hip-hop song.
Yeah. Hey, you got me to get down with a hip-hop song. God, that sounded terrible. I need to just not comment anytime we play a hip-hop song.
Just nod, go, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that was good. All right, the second song was a remix. It's called Yoda, Feel the Force. It's basically a mishmash of all the teachings that Yoda taught Luke in Empire Strikes Back, kind of turned into a song. And really, I'm sure you feel the same way I do. That's some of my favorite parts from the whole trilogy, or the whole sixilogy, and Empire Strikes Back, is when Yoda's teaching Luke the ways of the Force.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the one thing that still sticks with me philosophically from Star Wars is do or do not do. There is no try. I love that. I live by that. It makes complete sense to me.
Empire Strikes Back. That is the standard bearer. All right, Josh, what is the last song?
The last song we have for the show is a very cool project that came out this year. It's called Life After Death Star. It's one of those remix, mashup type things. Someone took the amazing rap of Notorious B.I.G. and mixed it with some classic Star Wars music and put a backbeat. This one is from Biggie's song "Niggas Bleed" off of Life After Death. Great song, the original and the remix. Check them both out. Go to YouTube, plop in their names, you'll find them.
Fantastic, and that is going to wrap it up. Sorry we did not get to authenticity. We will get to that topic in the future. Other than that, you know the whole routine. Find us on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, even Google+. It still exists. We don't really touch it much, but and you can hear us on all the... Oh, go ahead, Josh.
And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher, and we're on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and once in a while we put some shit up on YouTube. We're kind of lax on that now. Brian, I understand you're almost done with the rest of the beer reviews, so they'll be up there pretty soon, I suppose. But just check us out in all our normal places. But of course, go to our hub, philosophyjerks.com. Everything is there and more.
And write to us, send us messages, tell us what you think. Go ahead. I'm seeing Force Awakens the 17th. I got the special early tickets, so you're not going to spoil anything for me. If you want to talk to me about the movie, I'm ready to go.
I'm so excited.
I know. Nerdgasm. All right, everyone, that's going to do it. Episode 31 in the book, Star Wars. Enjoy the film. May the Force be with you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for episode 32.
Bye, everybody.
And don't... Oh, I forgot, Josh. Don't stop thinking.
So I think she would have boot Scooty and Boogie and ended up something like Han Solo or Boba Fett.